Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. I hope you had amazing worship. Let's dive right into the word. Mark chapter 8, verses 1 through 10. The word says, During those days, another large crowd gathered. Since they had nothing to eat, Jesus called disciples to him and said, I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. If I send them home hungry, they will collapse on the way because some of them have come a long way. Verse 4 His disciples answered, But where in this remote place can anyone get enough bread to feed them? How many loaves do you have? Jesus asked. 7, they replied. He told the crowd to sit down on the ground, and when he had taken the 7 loaves, given thanks, he broke them and gave them to his disciples to distribute to the people, and they did so. Verse 7 says they had a few small fish as well. He gave thanks for them also and told the disciples to distribute them. The people ate and were satisfied. Afterward, the disciples picked up 7 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. About 4,000 were present. After he had sent them away, he got into the boat with his disciples, and he went to the region of Dalmanutha. That was the word of God. The scene is feeding, or similar to the feeding of 5,000. And I'm sure you remember that story. This is a different gathering. A large crowd had come around Jesus. Initially, I would think that they weren't coming for like a 3 day revival retreat or conference. They came to listen to Jesus. Perhaps some thought for an afternoon, maybe a day. But that one day, that one afternoon turned into 3 days. And they still remained. They still wanted to be with Jesus, even when they ran out of food. Mark chapter 8, verse 2 says the crowd had been with Jesus for 3 days with nothing left to eat. They had eaten what they brought, maybe a small packed lunch, but they don't have it anymore. No vending machine in the wilderness. These people were hungry. They were tired, and I bet they were thirsty as well. Their stomachs were growling with nothing to eat. And as far as we can tell from the reading of the Bible, these people weren't grumbling. They were not complaining. They weren't demanding anything. They didn't panic. They simply stayed with Jesus, listening to his words, filling their spiritual need. Now, Jesus noticed this. So in verse 2, it says, I have compassion for these people. The word compassion originally means guts or inside, like heart, liver, stomach. Later, the word was used to mean deep feelings that comes from your inside, like love, or in this case, compassion. This word is associated with Jesus many times in the gospel. I can give you 3 stories because Samaritan is there's the word compassion there. The prodigal son, unforgiving servant, is a deep pain that moves somebody to act. He's saying, I care about you from the very bottom of my heart. And Jesus wasn't annoyed by their need. He saw their weakness, and their weakness made Jesus act. Again, you notice how the crowd didn't ask for anything, they didn't present their need in any way. Some people think that God only meets our needs when we present our needs in a right way. Like we need to pray a perfect prayer, whatever that means. Or we need to have the right attitude. Or a long, quiet time. Spend time with Him to earn His help. See, the issue here is nearness. They remain with Jesus, and Jesus responded not to their effort, but to their presence. One person who went through addiction recovery said, the turning point wasn't when I fixed everything, it was when I finally stayed long enough to be loved. And I think that's what this moment in the Bible feels like. They weren't doing, they were just there. And that was enough for Jesus to notice and then feed them. Jesus asked the disciples, "How many loaves do you have?" Disciples said, "Seven." Not much, right? But seven was all it took for Jesus to bless everyone. He took the bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave it back to the disciples. And as disciples distributed them, the bread multiplied. And I think that's how grace works. You bring what little you have, He does the rest. And maybe some of you are hungry right now this morning, not for food, but for peace, for rest, for something to fill the empty place that work, noise, scrolling, or even ministry hasn't touched. And the answer, perhaps, is not more effort. Maybe it's just remaining, being with Jesus. And to be honest, that's why we started this devotional, because we wanted to be reminded to be with Him, walk with Him, and be fed by Him. See, you don't need to hustle for grace. Jesus doesn't say, "Come back when you got it all together." He says, "I have compassion." Present tense, now, right here, in this moment, in your weakness. The crowd didn't bring solutions. All they brought were hunger, and Jesus filled it. You don't have to impress God, my friends. You just have to stop leaving too soon. Stay long enough to be fed. 7 loaves, a few fish, and Jesus made it enough. So this morning, bring your tired, your little, you're not enough, and sit. Let Jesus do what only He can do. The miracle starts when you stop running, when you stay and remain close to Jesus, when you trust that His compassion is real and that compassion is for you. I hope you experience this compassion today. God bless you, and I'll see you in a couple of days.